So thank you so much for taking the time for the session and for inviting me as part of this. I'm Trevor Howes, and the key for this session for me is the second heading on here. It's this about identifying and delivering greater partner or stakeholder value, and to help keep your role strategic. Very good follow on really from the previous discussion. We're all really using benefits realization management best practice. So what I'll do is, first of all, just to introduce myself and why am I qualified to speak today? Well, I've worked with hundreds of companies to help them implement and be successful with benefits realization. I've been doing it for over 20 years, and for more than 10 years, I've founded a company to help with this, Wovex, and to do it well, do it fast, do it easy, and do it at scale. And do connect in on LinkedIn with me as well, that'd be great. Now, first of all, let me ask you a question. Do you want to know theory or about the best practice, or have some things to use straight away? Because there's a lot of theory in this area. Hopefully good, you want to know more practical side. Because what I want to do is I want you to start delivering doing some things differently from Monday. And I'll walk you through a 9-step process with examples from the Wovex system, just to illustrate and help you. And also, this is really aimed at getting you to that trusted advisor, strategic partner level in terms of the maturity. And apologies if you do want theory, I'll be sharing the basics of actually what successful organizations and people do in this area. Now, there are so many things that you can do in this area, and I've cut this down to focus on some things I can cover in the next 45 minutes. And I assume you want to know how to do this fast and easy, and because none of us has loads of spare time, right? So the great thing is the more you do this, then the faster and easier it does get. And I don't really buy the excuse that people don't have the time to do, because this does lift you to more of a strategic level. It helps you have those conversations, helps you have that empathy, that understanding with your stakeholders. So I'm going to take you through some important steps here, 5 of which are only essential. So I've already saved you 4 steps before even starting. So that's fantastic. But they're all really important and key. That's why I want to go through them with you. So let's cover the first 3 steps, mapping or visual mapping, agreeing benefits and relationships. So first of all, let's start with mapping. Now, mapping or benefits mapping is really helpful for really areas like business cases or situations like workshops where you want to understand more about what's important. They help everyone gain clarity and be focused on this almost golden thread from initiatives or projects all the way through to the benefits they enable, through to the strategic goals, so you can show that strategic context. Now, this example is for a small change, but you can create a vast benefits map for your organization to include all the things your partners or your stakeholders value, or you can have lots of little ones for each business case, or whatever you need, really. And you can have different views of this as well for each stakeholder group to show what they're interested in. Now, many organizations love benefit maps because they're a visual way of showing everything on a page. And they have sessions to create maps, use existing benefits and measures from a library to speed things up, and to reuse existing measures that have previously been agreed. Now, if you haven't used benefits maps before, I really highly recommend them. Although they're not essential, they are really powerful. So let me just quickly show you a few things about them. So what I'm going to do is just go to the live Wovex system, right example. And here you can see the benefits map. You can see the initiatives here, or capabilities that you're planning or are doing. And you can see the alignment to contribute to certain benefits or outcomes. And there's some measures on some of these benefits. And you can see the cause and effect relationships. And what you can do is during a workshop or during a discussion is you can add something in here, sort of increased X as a benefit. Oops. You can then move that into position. You can then say, actually, that contributes to this. This initiative actually contributes to that as well. And you can start building a story of what's important and what's not. You can get people's opinions on things. And as I mentioned, if you have a set of existing things, the measures and benefits, you can pull those onto the map already. So they really are powerful. If you haven't used these before, I'd really, again, recommend them. Benefits and measures are at the heart of benefits realization work. And you need to build a set of information relating to benefits, measures, and more. And as you can see, you can have lots of different types of information. The top 4 ones here are the most important to get an understanding of benefits, measures, the initiatives or projects or capabilities that are going on, and also the strategic goals. Those are the 4 main ones. Now, these can come from the benefit maps from step 1, or you can just add them and document them as you go. And that's why maps are optional. So the common central library that I recommend that you do build should contain information, for example, how measures are calculated. So when business cases, etc., use them and can reuse them, you can really get started faster next time because you have this library, you've got some definitions agreed. And the more you understand, the more you've got agreement, then the more or the better you can add value. So let's just have a look at some detail around a benefit here on the left, sorry, a measure here on the left. I won't go into the details of the data you can capture, but you just start with names and descriptions and build them up over time of information. You can see tabs here on the system. You can build quite a bit of information up. On the right here, it's moving on from step 2 about identifying what's important to actually start looking at step 3, which is the relationships. So here is the relationships for a benefit. And the main thing to understand here is the initiatives that are contributing to that benefit or capabilities. So how is that impact going to happen? And also in terms of the measures, how is that going to be measured as well? So the initiatives and capabilities that will deliver them, and then how we'll measure them. Now, these relationships are important because they'll come into use on the dashboards later. You'll see alignment that I'll share with you. So once you've got that, you can start putting in some data behind them, especially the measures. So let's just move on. So we've covered mapping and agreeing and listing benefits and creating some documentation and adding some relationships. Next 3 steps are putting tracking data behind them, understanding context, and then health checks. And tracking data is the only one of these which is mandatory. So more good news. Now, this isn't the most exciting of screens, but it does show you a list here of measures with some data here for tracking. So you've got things like baselines and actuals. And step 4 is really around preparing to start tracking, start preparing the entries that over time you'll have some measure values entered for them. And if you're not using a system, this would be using a spreadsheet. So it's just a case of getting agreement on when should we start measuring and when should we stop measuring. That's all step 4 is those creating those entries. So you can start adding to as you need to. Now, lots of people have mental blocks about measures and measurement. So what we aim to do is really, with measures, reduce uncertainty, to observe and collect information to do this. Now, normally only a few measures matter, and you can try and measure many things, but lots of them almost have no value. So the key is to collect only those information on measures that matter and actually where the effort is justified. So otherwise you're wasting everybody's time and they won't thank you for it at all. So also don't think that putting forecasts in for benefits or measures is hard. You know, you need a single confident number. You can start with a range and start when the time is right, because maybe at the beginning of identifying a measure for a benefit that all the data isn't available. And you can be reassured that you can almost measure anything. And there are some great processes and approach in this book by Douglas Hubbard. I highly recommend it. And I'll share some more tips and links in a moment as well on that. So measurement can be easy. Ranges, delay, just focusing on those measures that matter. And a lot of this is about moving from intuition about, oh, this is doing good, to expert opinions, or even better, getting facts to actually show the value. Now, a couple of things to share. One is the rule of 5. This is where a large sample might not be needed. So a sample of even 5 people, when you want to do a survey, can have a 93% chance of being a representative value. And actually, you can have a single sample, or ask somebody, and that has a 75% chance of actually being good. Now, and that might be good enough for an initial bit of survey and information. So don't think you have to do massive surveys. Now, if you can agree with these or not, the main point is that measurement doesn't have to be hard. You can state assumptions and dependencies when describing a forecast value, and that can be really helpful. And often people agree to delay and then revisit later measurements when things can be done with more confidence. That's actually quite a common thing to actually say, yeah, we got the measure, we've got to wait till contracts are signed, all the things are agreed before we can actually put an expected value in. So here's a bit of a dip into some practical points, and I'll just continue with the steps. Hopefully that's of use. So we've just done 4. Step 5 is next. It's about adding context. It's not mandatory, but it's really useful nonetheless, especially from some of the things mentioned about the strategic role. So we've been talking about capturing benefit data, but have we missed something? It isn't important just to, or isn't it important also to try and reduce the risk to benefits and not just passively collect data and report on it? So step 5 is about us shifting from capturing information on data to also being able to spot risks and issues with benefit delivery and do something about them. So it's about capturing information around the people involved. So here you can see the relationships with this benefit. You can put some people in there, like subject matter experts, reviewers, owners, sponsors. You can also identify and list risks, the benefits as well. And this is different, as I mentioned, to the data side around actuals and forecasts, but it does give context. And as we'll see in step 6, this context is really useful to reduce the risk of not delivering those benefits that are expected by your stakeholders. So in step 6 is really around health checks. It's around those discussions, around that empathy, that engagement, that understanding of what's important for the business and how things are. And these can be done every month, every 3 months with key people, whatever feels right. And they're to review with those people some context data. You know, are the people still involved? So what about the risks? So down here you can see, you know, what's the risk score at the moment? What's your confidence level or the impact you expect? And they're there to review and refresh and see, oh, what do you think about this? What's your gut feel? Oh, it's red. Right, maybe you need to talk to the person who's doing the project, Mo, because you need to sort that out really. And this is about helping to keep benefits on track, to add that partner value or that stakeholder value that you need to deliver. So in Wovex, we've made this as really easy to do because we felt it's so important, that discussion and that understanding. So that's step 6. And what we've got now for the next 3 steps is really gathering the data and sharing the dashboards and doing reviews. So the same screen I showed you before, but this time it's about adding those actuals. It's about capturing the data from people. So you can either centrally enter these, either as a PMO or an analyst, or however you might want to organize yourselves to enter those actuals. Great thing about tools is you've got pre-built calculations in them, and to save you even more time and automations around emails out with forms that people can collect with zero touch from you. But it's essential that however you implement this, that you make it quick and easy for people to provide this data. And also comments as well. Now, step 8 is to then use that data to create dashboards, to create and share them. So this example shows different types of benefits, financial and non-financial, all side by side. So you can truly compare really apples and pears with each other. Now, the columns with IT and processing are groupings of projects or initiatives. So it could be one project, it could be many grouped together. You can choose to compare what you want to compare next to each other side by side on how things are doing. Now, you can also see the alignment here of measures and benefits to goals to give strategic context as well. Now, organizations use this type of dashboard a lot because it's really flexible to give that snapshot of benefit. And you need lots of options on how these statuses are calculated and trends. But really, can you imagine doing something with your stakeholders, sharing that? This is where we're at from a benefits perspective. And often these get mocked up with dummy data for business cases right at the start, just to bring things to life. You can also see key achievements up here and issues and actions. And that's really relating to step 9, putting some narrative in there to help bring the benefits and the progress to life. Had that expert analysis. These are some extra dashboards. They're common. I won't go much about them. On the left is a general governance dashboard with an overall RAG status of benefits health. Also, and you use that in governance packs. And on the right, there's more of a financial example. Okay, so there you have the 9 steps. It's important to get the benefits agreed with step 2. So these are the mandatory ones, to get those agreed and defined, to understand some key relationships. How are the benefits expected to be delivered? Get ready to start tracking, to then actually capture the data and do calculations, create those dashboards as well. And the other areas help really increase the control and delivery of value and build that relationship and maintain it. But these are the essential ones. So let me quickly, if I could just get your engagement, if you could go to menti.com, either on your phone or on your computer, so menti.com, and you'll see a form there that if you type in this number, there'll be some questions. So, have you, it's not created benefits.
Trevor, could you put the number in the chat again for those that can't see? There are still some people that can't see the slides. I'm just working away in the background here to try and get the PDF accessible to people at the moment. So if you could just type the number in the messages, please.
Yeah,
in the
sure.
chat, rather. Chat.
Yeah. It's menti.com, and what I'll do is I'll go to this different screen, and here we can see results for those coming in as you can people enter. So the question is, have you currently used a benefit realization approach? No, not used anything similar. Yes, you use something similar. It might be over 2 years ago, or maybe it's more recent. But just to get a sense really of experience in the room, as it were. We can flip back to that at the end. So, okay, so it'd be quite new or not that used by most people. So it's very easy to get started with just agreeing those measures, and sometimes you don't have to almost get the agreement of the stakeholders if you feel they might be anti, but to actually start adding those in and sharing what's going on. Okay, but there is a cohort, a group which have and do actively do. Brilliant. Thank you for that. I'll have a look at the end, just see if any more scores have come in on that. But thank you, that's really helpful. So just to bring things a bit more to life, and I'll go through these quite quickly because I do want time for Q&A at the end. Clarity on benefits expected and delivered is really important, and we don't want too much fuzziness really with your stakeholders, or ambiguity really around benefits. Now, really at the beginning, is value expected from a change, from a project, from some technology worth it? Should you progress? Also, have they gained, and are they gaining value from the result of that? Can you demonstrate it? And also, can you demonstrate that you're adding value as well? You're having the discussions, you're having the clarity, you're sharing some things, you may be adding narrative of what's going on. And to make sure that what the benefits that are identified actually align to strategic goals. So that's where benefits realization really comes into its own. And just to take you through an example using the steps. So I've just, it's a very brief example just to bring things a bit more to life, but maybe will changing some capability on a campus enhance student experience. So maybe it's adding another bar or something similar. And will this lead to them recommending the university to others or spending more time on campus? So what are the important things we need to know is step one. Does this come down to student perceptions of current things on the campus? What's their behaviour now, their visits? Do we have any measures of those now? What's the cost and time of finding information? And if it's something more than this, maybe break down the logic. Why is this important? Why should it be important to the university having more people on campus or spending more time in shops or other locations? So it's getting that clarity, and that's steps 1 and 2 is defining those and just getting a grip on what that might be and how it might be measured. Step 3 is then saying, okay, are there any things around other measures that we can link in? You can skip ahead and add some context information here about risks if you want to, and really understand how does this align strategically to goals. So it's just around saying, this initiative to introduce a new bar, we're expecting it to contribute to these benefits and these measures. Then setting up some means of doing the tracking and capturing the data. Is it monthly, weekly, daily, quarterly? And then really starting to talk to people and saying, okay, who are some subject matter experts we can discuss this with and pull in? Are there some dates we need to know around when things should be happening and need to know? And then doing health checks to say, actually, maybe every month before the project, how are people feeling about these benefits? Sit down and meet or have a Teams call with somebody. Are the people still the same? What about the risk and the confidence in there? And that should continue, and that brings that relationship, that conversation together. So then collect data, do the calculations, understanding context, what's happening on the campus, what's happening with shop takings, adding notes, and then creating some dashboards every month or quarter to just say, okay, this is what we're finding out. Does that make sense? The first draft, what's your feeling? Should we investigate stuff? Is it not right? Revisit, republish the dashboards, and people go, yeah, this is representative, or yeah, it's helping us, and agreeing those actions. So that's really through the 9 steps, and these are the areas of benefits realization that most people struggle with, about actually what to do next, to help you identify greater partner value, to stay and get to that trusted advisor, strategic partner maturity level. And I've been sharing some screens from Wovex because just to help bring things to life, and it does provide a standard process and capability for you. Now I've just crammed in some extra slides, or an extra slide on some top tips. I would really recommend benefit maps to agree that value expected and the capabilities, how they're going to enable that, how they align strategically. To reuse and build that standard set of benefits and measures. Once you get them, brilliant. They're really easy to then reuse for different ideas, opportunities. And also in terms of, for your organization, select those measures that might be out there which are industry standard, to add those to your standard set. Now pull these together centrally. You don't want, if there's a big team, if there's just you, it's not a problem. If there's a big team, try not to have loads and loads of spreadsheets. And just start tracking. Just if you can't get the data yet, wait until it can come on stream with enough confidence, and start creating dashboards to shift that understanding, to give something to your stakeholders, your partners, on how you're doing, to demonstrate that value add, or not. No, so it shows you're in control and adding value again. And when we take people through the system, we can go 45 minutes from having nothing into creating dashboards. So it doesn't have to be hard, even if you're doing it manually. And just some resources. So we've put on wovex.com/BRM some information. There's a PDF of the 9 steps, both the full version and the one with the mandatory ones. I've put in a couple of links there to databases of social and environmental measures. There's a couple of links on there. A website link to this how to measure anything. And there's also articles on benefits realization management on there. I do recommend the book, and also do connecting with me on LinkedIn, because I publish, and we do as Wovex, publish loads of articles on this almost every week. So just to end, I mentioned that Wovex, we've created it to help people move away from spreadsheets. Some people have hang-ups around non-financial measures. They're used to financials. They're not so good with non-financials. They want to try and do this fast and easy as possible. And they want things to be centralized, especially if you've got lots of projects, lots of people going on. And if you do or are interested, do contact me. So I'm not trying to do a big sales thing here. It's just, okay, we want to help people in the BRM Institute. So we do have an offering as well in terms of pilot and use for the first year. But do contact us. We've got some limited discounts available. But what we'll do is we'll take you through the system in more detail, and take you through. So hopefully that's been helpful. And we do want, as I say, want you to do it really fast and easy, and do it well, and demonstrate that value. But enough of me. I don't know if there's any questions, and I'll share my screen.
Hi, Trevor. Yeah, we do have some questions in the chat for you. So first up, we've got a question from Jag. Does our benefits realisation need to align to corporate objectives, or are we cultivating our own, or a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. You always want to have things strategically adding value to the organisation, and that's really important. But also there are local groups who have issues of benefits that they want addressing, want to be seen. They don't care almost about the corporate, the business objectives or goals, but they do care about their own objectives for obvious reasons. So it is a mix of both. I would say if you are doing just your own local ones, then do add one or two strategic context ones in to show that alignment. It might be a nice idea to build a burger van for outside the university or something. Everybody will make everybody happy, but it won't help the organisation move forward, really. So.
Thank you, Trevor. We've got another question in the chat as well from Sarah. Who owns benefits realisation, the planning and the measurement?
That's a really good question. I mean, ultimately, the organisation as a whole and the CXOs own value of the organisation being added, and that cascades down. In terms of, and you all have objectives, or should have, and so on. So you all should be focusing doing things to add to them. In terms of a process and a capability, then that's not as easy. Sometimes it's a strategic group that own it. Sometimes it's a program that might be. So it could be the BRM, or the service management, or it's whoever will really be able to sponsor it and help have people's back. Because we get all combinations. Sometimes, it is a team of people just doing benefits, and sometimes it's somebody, PMO, who has a benefits role, and it could be a BRM in terms of them champion it. But as long as they've got the okay from their boss that this is a good thing to do. So not a clear answer, but it's everybody. But from a process and capability, it's really from a change or service point of view, whatever works for your organisation.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got another question here from Neil. What advice or techniques do you offer to overcome business resistance to the commitment promise arising from benefits management? Often it means they need to reduce their resources or budgets because of the initiatives they're delivering.
Yeah, this one really annoys me. Not as a question, but as a. I mean, everyone's employed by an organisation for a role to add value. If you're not adding value, then you shouldn't be in the organisation. And the same for projects and initiatives. If there's valuable resources being taken to fund a project or implement some new capability, it's for a reason. And the business has the right, because it's their, or the organisation, that it's their money being spent, their resources going into this. So surely they should seek some return. And therefore, it might not be always financial. There could be a lot of non-financial benefits. And sometimes it is only non-financial benefits. But so I don't want to get too heated about it or take too long, but it is almost a case of actually it should be part of everybody's role to improve the performance and especially the productivity of the organisation. And to actually be able to articulate it with facts and evidence that you are adding that value surely is a great thing. So if people are resistant, that they don't want to make improvements, then they need to fight the business case and say, no, this is, this efficiency saving is going to have a detrimental effect on my customers or the students or whatever. So I think that's where the maps come in well, for actually convincing everybody, or not convincing, but demonstrating, actually, on the whole, on the balance, this is a really good pill to swallow for the organisation. If we're going to have some dental work, you need to have some anaesthetic to numb the pain. So there's loads of good stuff, being free of pain in the future, but you have to have, it's not all, you have to have some negatives with that.
So would you say it's a case of trying to convince the business to reinvest the value saving, so that the cost saving that they've got back into another initiative, which would add further value.
I think that's the great thing is you basically, what you're doing is you're providing a choice, you're providing options which might not have been there before. So if you're providing resources, you're saving money, for example, they can take that as a saving to reduce cost, or they could invest it in many things. So it is a case of what you're doing is you're almost putting benefits into a bank account, which they can then spend on for their own means in their own way, to their own priorities. So it's that process of improvement, value add, and storing up in a bank account. I think it's a communication one again, actually showing.
So I've got another question, which you kind of touched on a couple of, in a couple of your points, but how should you go about introducing benefits realization if you're kind of pretty completely new to this? And also, what would kind of be the biggest challenge for the kind of BRM, in their first time doing that as well, and obviously anyone else involved in the process?
No, that's really good. Thanks, Jack. So if you're new to an organisation, it's almost a case of saying, okay, well, you can either do a map and just say, can I just understand the context here? So we're doing this initiative. What does it contribute to? And okay, how are we measuring that? Are we? And can I see a business case, or which is often not advisable because often there isn't one. But it's almost a case of just building those measures yourself, those definitions, and just start showing with people, okay, these seem to be a common theme, these measures and these benefits. So, is this our common set? Okay, do we report on them? Okay, how are we doing gut feel, red, amber, green on them? And not having to go for a big implementation of a process, big introduction, but just do it by stealth, by asking questions and building that. And the challenge is really, they can be of your own making. So you can go to people, right, we're just going to measure stuff, and people more than you are now. And so having the sponsorship, the support of people, a bit like the BRM role, having the sponsorship, saying what it is and what it isn't, because it's mostly pushback from people thinking, oh, I've got to do loads more now. And it's like, well, no, you don't. You do a little bit, but you get a lot back. Or it's almost a case of, well, we can't find data. We've done this before. We can't do this. Well, let's just do gut feel and put caveats on. And it's not. So it's trying to go too formal, too fast, too much effort, and it's a change management process.
So would your advice be to kind of keep it simple to start with? I think you touched on this kind of earlier in your thing. Keep it simple and make it kind of one or two things, and not make it too complex, and try and track every little bit of value you might get out of those initiatives. Just stick to those main couple. Exactly,
Jack. Yeah. So it's very much a case of, we always recommend pilots to try for 3 or 4 months, the process, because it helps educate people actually on the 1 or 2 or a handful of measures. Oh, this is what it is. Oh, we can get this out. Oh, this is what a dashboard looks like. Oh, that's useful. Or I'll share that with so-and-so. So it's starting with those handful, you're spot on, and just doing it light touch and just illustrating the art of the possible, and and taking feedback from people. But we always recommend that, because unless you've got a mature benefits realization process now that you're enhancing, you're trying to do this from scratch. Really do it. Start small.
Yeah. So would you say sort of starting off with kind of maybe an Excel template, and kind of start there, tracking it, and then build it up to later on investing in a dedicated tool?
Exactly. Yeah. Excel spreadsheet. These are the benefits. This is how we measure each benefit. This is a description of them. This is something about them. What's the forecast, or even just a RAG status, which is almost like a health check, gut feel. And then you can add data to that for those that you can, and just start sharing things around. And as you say, as you get traction with that, you can start going up the maturity to have a repeatable process. And then that's when you start looking at tools. But yeah, we start with Excel, or especially if you're doing something small. But just to get that experience and that acceptance from the organisation and demonstrate proof that it does what it is and what it isn't.
And I suppose that will also help with the kind of iterative development, which will tend to happen. You'll start off quite basic and then you'll add complexity as you go along. So it kind of enables you to kind of build that up slowly. Exactly.
It's a classic maturity growth thing. You know, you're not doing it, or you're doing it badly and ad hoc, or then you can start doing it repeatable. And it's along the way you have lots of conversations that people might expect a certain thing from it. You say you can start bursting those assumptions and expectations and resetting them. It's about the conversations, and I think that's why a BRM role is really good for it, because it is about strategic value and demonstrating it, not just, you know, gut feel of, yeah, we are doing a good job, aren't we? It's like, no, you've got evidence that you are adding value.
Absolutely. And if you could just say one thing a BRM should start doing today, if they're not already kind of down the full kind of benefits realization with a robust tool to support that and organisationally working to, what would that one thing be?
I would say really get a dashboard, benefits dashboard. You know, even if it's gut feel with things, because what you can do is start showing to people, you should be reviewing this. You should be having a look at how you're doing on the benefits and the measures that are important to you. And that one thing, if you illustrate that, then people can say, yeah, okay, well, how do we build it? And getting the senior buy-in to that dashboard is the one crucial thing that you can really make a difference on. And it brings it to life for people. And people like colours and they like pretty things. So it really helps introduce it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Trevor.